Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Gals and guys, go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Gals and guys, go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Gals and guys, go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How is everyone doing today? Let me just put a picture up. How's everyone doing today? It is Saturday, uh, January 14th. We just came out of January 13th, which was Friday the 13th, which most people would assume was a bad luck day, except that somebody in Maine just won the mega $1 billion single. So I don't think too many people should be telling me about a bad luck day. I will not co-sign that in my life. So this is a lesson learned. There's nothing bad about Friday the 13th. So I'm over here looking for a highlighter. I just find it interesting with all the work that I do not have a yellow highlighter. I have black, I have red, I have everything but I just want to say hi to everyone that's on right now. And I want to say hi to Lex Hall. Hi, sweetie. How are you? It's a little hot in here. And I want to say hi to Irie, good health. And W. Hello, sweetie. Good health. Sabrina, good health. I'm great. How are you? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Sweet Carmel smile, loving hugs. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, sweet Carmel. Sleepy, getting breakfast ready. Okay, yeah, go get that breakfast. W says, someone won. I should have played the lottery. It's okay. A single person won in Maine. Jessie May, good morning, Mystical Misfits, Miss Tracy. By the way, I'm getting ready for work. Quit about to get an Uber for work, but I want to tell you that I ordered, oh my goodness. Oh, I can't tell you how I'm excited to get some Manuka honey. I'll be sending it to you. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Jessie May, thank you so much. Hope you like it. Child, I'm going to eat it like people eat peanut butter on a spoon. Joshua. Hi, Joshua. Hi, Tracey Brown. I'm new here. Well, welcome. CW, I played. Guess it wasn't my time. Let me tell you something, Sweets Carmel. I played, but it wasn't my time either. And I'm okay with that, right? I'm okay with that. I know that if I win the Mega Millions, it changes my life forever. And as much as I want to win the Mega Millions, I want to make sure if my life changes forever, it's for the better. So there's something in that statement where I'm questioning whether or not I should win, right? I don't need my life to change too far left, if that makes any sense. So maybe growing gradually in life is what's meant to be, right? It's not a bad thing. But boy, if I won the Mega Millions, I sure could build that health center today. You know what, Joshua? If you put it out there, you win. You know how I know? Because someone has to win. And I don't want you to judge Mega or Powerball or Lotto. Don't judge, because that means you're looking at size, right? If you want a $3 million lotto, you're hella rich, right? you're rich, right? You don't need a $890 million lotto, a $3 million lotto. You know what? To be honest with you, a $1 million lotto could suffice for me, right? Or share the jackpot. I wouldn't mind sharing it. All right. We are reading today Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. Has anyone ever heard of the book Conversations with God? It's been around since 1996. The hardcover, it's been around since 1995. I would get a new home in Florida, my beautiful sunshine state. Oh, yes. Yeah, I kind of see that, Sin W, and no one ever wins in the Caribbean either. So that makes you wonder. I heard about it, but never read it. Oh, okay. I have a copy. Oh, okay. So at least you guys have some familiarity with the book, right? So this man is a true story. This man, I guess he was going through something, and he starts to have conversations inside his head, and someone talks back to him. And then he decided to document the conversations, which I think is amazing because many of our conversations are with God. They are. And so I'm reading this book because I want us all to get in the practice to listen to the voices that talk to us inside our heads. It's one of those things where you say to yourself, say, okay, this is a true story. This happened to me. I was in an Uber, and the driver says to me, my GPS is telling me not to go on the 405. Wait, no, it was telling him not to go on the 101. It's telling me to go all the way down to the 405. And I said, that is so stupid. Why would your GPS say that? I don't believe in that. And I said, go to the 101. And then we started having conversations about the difference between this. And he's like, yeah, I got to go all the way down. And I was like, yeah, that's so stupid. And then at the very last minute, I said, maybe you should go on a 405. And then he had a split second to make that decision to go on the 101. And I said, forget it, go on the 101. We were in traffic for 3 hours. And I had to pay for an Uber that was like $200. No kidding. Because there was a huge car accident and the car flipped over. Oh, it was terrible. It was a terrible car accident. And where we were, when the traffic started coming, there was absolutely no exit. So I was stuck. And I was already spiritual by this time. I was already spiritual. I already knew to listen to my voice, but this was a huge lesson for me to learn to stop playing with God. All right. So I'm going to start out with the acknowledgments because I think even the acknowledgments are important here. I do need something. Let me see. Okay, I'll use this. Something to lift my book up. Acknowledgments. First, last, and always, I want to acknowledge the source of everything that is in this book, everything that is life and of life itself. Second, I want to thank my spiritual teachers, who include the saints and the sages of all religions. Third, it is clear to me that all of us could produce a list of people who have touched our lives in ways so meaningful and so profoundly as to defy categorization or description, categorizing or describing people who have shared with us their wisdom. told us their truth, suffered us our faults, and foils in their infinite patience, and who have seen us through all of it, seen the best in us there was to see, people who, in their acceptance of us, as well as their refusal to accept the parts of us they knew we really didn't choose, caused us to grow, to get bigger somehow. And then he goes on to list his versions of the people. I want to include in this group former mates whose privacy I wish to respect by not naming them here, but whose contributions to my life are deeply grasped and appreciated. And as gratitude for the gifts I have received from all these wonderful people swells my heart. I'm especially warmed by the thought of my helpmate, spouse, and partner, Nancy Fleming Walsh, a woman of extraordinary wisdom, compassion, and love, who has shown me that my highest thoughts about human relationships do not have to remain fantasies, but can be dreams that come true. Fourth and finally, I want to recognize some people I've never met, whose lives and works have impacted me with such force that I cannot let this moment pass without thanking them from the depth of my being for the moments of exquisite pleasure, insights into the human condition, and pure, simple life feelken. I made up that word. That's what he actually said. They have given me. You know what it is like when someone has given you a taste of a glorious moment, or what is really true about life? For me, most of these have been created performing arts, because it is from art that I receive inspiration, to which I retreat in moments of reflection, in which I find that which we call God most beautifully expressed. And so I want to thank John Denver, whose songs touch my soul. I like John Denver too, and fill it with new hope about life, about how life could be. Richard Bach, whose writings reached into my life as if they were my own, describing so much of what has been my experience. Barbara Streisand, who directing, acting, and musical artistry grips my heart, and time again cause it to feel what is true, not merely know it. And the late Robert Heinlein, whose visionary literature has raised questions and posed answers in ways no one else has dared to approach. Then he goes on to thank his, I'm not going to read the introductory. Let me see, should I? I'll read a little bit of it. The introduction. You are about to have an extraordinary experience. You are about to have a conversation with God. Yes, I know that's not possible. You probably think or have been taught that's not possible. One can talk to God, sure, but not with God. I mean, God is not talking back, right? At least not in the form of a regular, everyday kind of conversation. Well, that's what I thought too. Then this book happened to me, and I mean that literally. The book was not written by me, it happened to me. And in your reading of it, it will happen to you. For we are all led to the truth for which we are ready. My life would probably be much easier if I had kept all of this quiet, if that wasn't a reason. It happened to me. And whatever inconveniences the book may have caused me, such as being called a blasphemer, a fraud, a hypocrite, for not having lived the truths in the past, or perhaps worse, a holy man. It is not possible for me to stop the process now, nor do I wish to. I've had my chances to step away from this whole thing, and I haven't taken them. I've decided to stick with what my instincts are telling me, rather than what much of the world will tell me about the material here. Those instincts say this book is not nonsense, the overworking of a frustrated spiritual imagination, or simply the self-justification of a man seeking vindication from a life misled. Oh, I've thought of all those things, every one of them. So I give this material to a few people to read while it was still in manuscript form. They were moved, and they cried, and they laughed for the joy and the humor in it. And their lives, they said, changed. They were transfixed. They were empowered. Many said they were transformed. That's when I knew that this book was for everyone and that it had to be published because it was a wonderful gift to all those who truly want answers and who truly care about the questions. For all those who have embarked upon quest for truth with sincerity of heart, longing of the soul, and openness of the mind. And that's pretty much all of us. This book, most if not all of the questions we have ever asked about life and love and purpose and function, people and relationships, good and evil, guilt and sin, forgiveness and redemption, the path to God, the road to hell, everything. It directly discusses sex, power, money, children, marriage, divorce, life, work, health, and the hereafter, the before now, everything. It explores war and peace, knowing and not knowing, giving and taking, joy and sorrow. It looks at the concrete and the abstract, the visible and the invisible, the truth and the untruth. You could say that this book is God's latest word on things, although some people might have a little trouble with that, particularly if they think that God stopped talking 2,000 years ago, or that if God had continued communicating, it's been only with holy men, medicine women, or someone who has been meditating for 30 years, or good for for 20, or at least half decent for 10. None of which categories include me. The truth is, God talks to everyone, the good and the bad, the saint and the scoundrel, and certainly all of us in between. Take you, for instance. God has come to you in many ways in your life, and this is another of them. How many times have you heard the old axiom, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear? This book is our teacher. Shortly after this material began happening to me, I knew that I was talking with God directly, personally, infruitably, and that God was responding to my questions in direct proportion to my ability to comprehend. That is, I was being answered in ways and with language that God knew I would understand. This accounts for much of the colloquial style of writing and the occasional references to material I've gathered from other sources and prior experiences in my life. I know now that everything that has come to me in my life has come to me from God, and it was now being drawn together, pulled together in a magnificent, complete response to every question I've ever had. And somewhere along the way, I realized a book was being produced, a book intended for publication. Indeed, I was told specifically during the latter part of the dialogue in February 1993 that 3 books would be actually produced, and that the first would deal mainly with personal topics, focusing on the individual's life, challenges, and opportunity. The second will deal with more global topics of geopolitical and metaphysical life on the planet and the challenges now facing the world. The third would deal with universal truths of the highest order and the challenges of opportunities of the soul. This is the first of those books, completed in February 1993. For clarity, I should explain, as I transcribed this dialogue by hand, I underlined or circled words and sentences which came to me with particular emphasis as if God were booming them out. And those were later placed in italics by the typesetter. I need now to say that I am, having read and reread the wisdom contained here, deeply embarrassed by my own life, which has been marked by, let me see, continued mistakes and misdeeds, some very shameful behaviors, some choices and decisions which I'm certain others consider hurtful and unforgiving. Though I have profound remorse that it was through others' pain, I'm unspeakably grateful for all that I've learned and found, and that I have still yet to learn because of the people in my life. I apologize to everybody for the slowness of the learning, yet I am encouraged by God to grant myself forgiveness for my failings and not to live in fear and guilt, but to always keep trying, keep on trying to live a grandeur vision. I know that's what God wants for all of us. There's a lot going on here that I didn't highlight, but the very last part, I just wanted to point out something. And yet I encourage my God to grant myself forgiveness for my failings and not to live in fear and guilt, but to always keep trying, keep on trying to live a grander vision. So I say that to say that last part, although there was little points that I could have talked about, I just didn't want to stop the dialogue. But that very last part reminds me of when I started needing to exercise, right? I already knew I should be exercising. I already knew I was supposed to be losing weight. But I kept finding myself gaining more weight. And then I go to the doctor, and the doctor cried for me. It was an odd thing for a doctor, but I also don't live in the States, right? I live in St. Croix, so maybe things are just different here. Maybe spirit moved God for the doctor to cry for me. But he wasn't crying for me because I was in such bad straits. He was crying for me because there was something that could be done now, today. And as I patted the doctor on his forearm, I said to him, I'll do it. I was moved by his compassion for me. And I said, I'll do it. I promise. Almost saying, I don't think I added, but almost saying, don't cry, doc. Don't cry. I got this. I'll do it. I promise. And the very next day, I made a commitment to start this walking, which is what he had suggested. But the thing about walking, guys, or going to the gym, it's public, right? And that's the reason why we gain weight in the first place, because it's public. It means somebody has to see you not look so good. That's what I thought, right? And I had to figure out that if that's what I thought in my mind, I can't fix my mind today, but I can still get up and get out there and walk. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I had gotten here. I was embarrassed that I had to let people see that I was trying to do something, because it's obvious when someone's walking for exercise. Like, you can't mistake it, right? And the third day, I had to get up and go through the embarrassment again and again and again, until one day I said to myself, what difference does it make? What difference does it make if you're overweight? Like, stop that being the very thing that stops you. Just get up and do it. Don't worry about who's looking at you. Just do it and forgive yourself because you got there. You went to a place you shouldn't have gotten. Forgive you. So I forgave myself and started walking with a better mindset. Because if I would have kept the original mindset, I would have stopped. And my appointment was 3 months ago. I go to see my doctor on the 31st, and I don't know what I've done because I don't have a scale in my house. But what I can tell you, though, is that I walk every day. That's what I can tell you. I don't know what the doctor's going to see. He'll weigh me. What I can tell you is that I walk every single day. And I forgive myself when I don't want to walk. I forgive myself when I wake up sluggish. This morning I woke up sluggish. This morning would have been a great day to walk because the sun took forever to come out. I could have walked at 8 o'clock and I still wouldn't have had the sun. I think the point that I'm trying to make is I forgive myself for being where I'm at, and I push forward anyway. I'm no longer embarrassed of my thick thighness, right? Although it could be shrunk down a lot. And I forgive myself when I'm luxuriating in my bed. I actually love my bed. So I forgive myself when I'm luxuriating and I don't want to get up. And today I didn't get up. I just laid there because sometimes I think I deserve that too, to just lay there. All right. I just want to point that out. Just going to repeat it one more time. And yet I am encouraged by God to grant myself forgiveness for my failings and not to live in fear and guilt, but to always keep trying, keep on trying to live a grander vision. I know that's what God wants for all of us. Wow, that's so pretty. Everyone press the like button. Thank you, Sin W. And Irie Scott says, you will motivate others. Since I've started, 5 more people have started and have good results. Oh my goodness, I love that. I love that, Irie. All right, let's begin. I guess this is chapter 1. In the spring of 1992, it was around Easter, as I recall, an extraordinary phenomenon occurred in my life. God began talking with you through me. Let me explain. I was very unhappy during that period, personally, professionally, and emotionally. And my life was feeling like a failure on all levels. I have been in the habit for years of writing my thoughts down in letters. Oh, I like that. It's a great concept, though. Something to show up. Go back to comments. Which I usually never delivered. I picked up my trusty yellow legal pad and began pouring out my feelings. This time, rather than another letter to another person I imagined to be victimizing me, I thought I'd go straight to the source, straight to the greatest victimizer of them all. I decided to write a letter to God. It was a spiteful, passionate letter, full of confusion, contortion, and condemnations, and a pile of angry questions. Why wasn't my life working? What would it take to get it to work? Why could I not find happiness in relationships? What's the experience of adequate money going to elude me forever? Finally, and most emphatically, What had I done to deserve a life of such continuous struggle? To my surprise, as I scribbled out the last of my bitter, unanswered questions and prepared to toss my pen aside, my hand remained poised over the paper, as if there by some invisible force. Abruptly, the pen began moving on its own. I had no idea what I was about to write, but an idea seemed to be coming, so I decided to flow with it. Out came. Do you really want an answer to all those questions? Or are you just venting? I blinked, and my mind came up with a reply. I wrote that down too. Both. I'm venting, sure, but if these questions have answers, I'm sure as hell like to hear them. You are sure as hell about a lot of things. But wouldn't it be nice to be sure as heaven? Huh. Let me highlight that. And I wrote, what is that supposed to mean? Before I knew it, I had begun a conversation. And I was not writing so much as taking dictation. That dictation went on for 3 years. And at that time, I had no idea where it was going. The answers to the questions I was putting on paper never came to me until the question was completely written. And I put my own thoughts away. Often the answers came faster than I could write. I found myself scribbling to keep up. When I became confused or lost, the feeling that the words were coming from somewhere else, I put the pen down and walked away from the dialogue until I again felt inspired. Sorry, that's the only word which truly fits, to return to the yellow legal pad and start transcribing again. These conversations are still going on as I write this, and much of it is found on the pages which follow, pages which contain an astounding dialogue, which at first I disbelieved and then assumed to be of personal value, but which I now understand was meant for more than just me. It was meant for you and everyone else who has come to this material. For my questions are questions. I want you to get into the dialogue as soon as you can, because what's really important here is not my story, but yours. It's your life story which brought you here. It's your personal experience to which this material has resonance. Otherwise, you would not be here with it right now. So, let's enter the dialogue with a question I've been asking for a very long time. How does God talk, and to whom? When I asked this question, here's the answer I received. I talk to everyone all the time. The question is not to whom do I talk, but who listens. Intrigued, I asked God to expand on this subject. Here's what God said. First, let's exchange the word talk with the word communicate. It's a much better word, a much fuller, more accurate one. When we try to speak to each other, me to you, you to me, we are immediately constricted by the unbelievable limitations of words. For this reason, I do not communicate by words alone. In fact, rarely do I do so. My most common form of communication is through feeling. Feeling is the language of the soul. Let me highlight that. If you want to know what's true for you about something, look to how you're feeling about it. Feelings are sometimes difficult to discover, if often even more difficult to acknowledge. Yet hidden in your deepest feelings is your highest truth. The trick is to get to know those feelings. I will show you how, again, if you wish. I told God that I did wish, but that right now I wished even more of a complete and full answer to my first question. Here's what God said. I also communicate with thought. Thought and feelings are not the same, although they occur at the same time. In communicating with thought, I often use images and pictures. For this reason, thoughts are more effective than mere words as tools of communication. In addition to feelings and thoughts, I also use the vehicle of experience as a grand communicator. And finally, when feelings and thoughts and experiences all fail, I use words. Words are really the least effective communicator. They are most open to misinterpretation, most often misunderstood. And why is that? It's because of what words are. Words are merely utterances, noises that stand for feelings, thoughts, and experience. They are symbols, signs, insignias. They are not truths. They are not the real thing. Words may help you understand something. Experience allows you to know. Yet there are some things you cannot experience. So I have given you other tools of knowing, and these are. Now, the supreme irony here is that you have all placed so much importance on the Word of God. Wow. Wow. And so little on experience. Wow. Side note, just mark where I'm stopping here. Side note, what church have you not gone to where somebody has says the Word of God, the Word of God? And somewhere here, we're learning, at least for right now, that we put too much importance on the Word of God when God talks to us better by our feelings and our thoughts. Wow. Oh my God, this is amazing. I'm loving God for this. Now, the supreme irony here is that you all place so much importance on the Word of God and so little on experience. In fact, you place so little value on experience that when what you experience of God differs from what you've heard of God, you automatically discard the experience and own the words when it should be just the other way around. Your experience and your feelings are about a thing, represent what you factually and intuitively know about a thing. Words can only seek to symbolize what you know and can often confuse what you know. These, then, are the tools with which I communicate. Yet, they are not the methods, for not all feelings, not all thoughts, not all experience, and not all words are from me. Oh, oh, God's getting deep here. We just started, it's already getting deep. Many words have been uttered by others in my name. Come on, God. Come on, people. Many thoughts and many feelings have been sponsored by causes not of my direct creation. Many experiences result from these. The challenge is one of discernment. The difficulty is knowing the difference between messages from God and data from other sources. Discrimination is a simple matter with the application of a basic rule. Mine is always from highest thought, your clearest word, your grandest feeling. Anything less is from another source. Now the tax of differentiation becomes easy, for it should not be difficult even for the beginning student to identify the highest, the clearest, the grandest. Yet, I will give you these guidelines. The highest thought is always that thought which contains joy. Wow. Did you guys know that? The clearest words are those words which contain truth. Interesting. The grandest feeling is that feeling which you call love. Joy, truth, love. These three are interchangeable, and one always leads to the other. It matters not in which order they are placed. Hi, Daryl. Having these guidelines determine which messages are mine and which have come from another source. The only person remaining is whether my messages will be heeded. Most of my messages are not. Some because they seem too good to be true, others because they seem too difficult to follow, many because they are simply understood, most because they are not received. Let's go over that again. Having these guidelines, joy, truth, love, which determines which messages are mine, which have come from another source. The only question remaining is whether my messages will be heeded. Most of my messages are not. Some because they seem too good to be true. I can attest for that. I'm like, God, what are you talking about? I'm not doing that. I'm not going to the Caribbean to be alone. I'm going to Washington State. And God was like, something's coming and you don't know it. God didn't say that. God was like, for 2 years you complained about going to the Caribbean. Why don't you just go? And then once I looked for tickets and a hotel, it was reasonable. I had the money to go. And once I thought about it, I was like, well, God, a week would cost me, this amount. And I said, if I get a cheaper Airbnb, maybe I could stay a month for the same amount instead of staying at a fancy hotel. Maybe I could stay a month in an Airbnb and rent a car, and maybe I could have a bigger experience in the Caribbean, longer, bigger experience. We were still in COVID lockdown crap, right? So why not? I was going to stay home anyway, or I could be in the Caribbean and stay home in the Caribbean. Um, and so I made the decision to change over, and everything was so fluid, right? So I went to book a ticket for coach, and then I said, God, I've never traveled business. I was like, can I travel business? And sure enough, I looked at the business um, ticket, and it was $150 more than Coach. And I was like, what? This is crazy. And I was like, okay, I can afford $150. Boom, I booked the ticket, right? Business class. And I was like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. Booked the Airbnb for a month. This was in February. Booked the plane ticket in advance. I wasn't going until June because I needed time to think. So I didn't want to go next week. I wanted to go and process what is it that I'm doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I just know at this point I got permission to go. At first it was just go, and my normal mind, right, the human mind, thought of a week's vacation because that's what jobs give us. So that's what I was thinking. And then I was like, everybody's on lockdown. Why am I limiting myself to 1 week? And if I take myself out of an expensive hotel and go in an Airbnb, then maybe I could stay longer. Everything was fluid, everything. So now I've booked the tickets. I'm staying a month. It's February. And now it's March. And now it's April. And now I'm like, God, maybe I could live there. God didn't answer me. And then I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do, God. I'm going for a month. And I'm going to take that time, not in luxuriating. I'm going to take that time and I'm going to look for an apartment. And if something shows up, I know that's my answer to stay. If nothing shows up, then what? I come back home. I love where I live. I love California. Then I just come back home. There was no loss to me. There was no loss. Um, and then I get here and it was fluid. Finding a place was fluid. Now, maybe it was fluid because of the lockdown. I don't know. I just know everything was fluid. That maybe the timing of it with the lockdown. I did hear, prior to the lockdown, it was really expensive to live here, but the lockdown had caused a lot of depreciation. So I don't know, but I'm grateful that I had a conversation with God and not all my questions got answered. Like I said, if I go to Caribbean, can I look for a place? God never answered me. So I was like, okay, if I go, then I'm just going to look for a place because it kind of gave me something to do. I was like, I'll go and I'll look for a place. I felt like it could give me the opportunity to get to know the land, get these addresses, go driving to these addresses. That was my mindset. God is the funniest God you've ever met. If you can have a relationship with God where He's not this big omnibus, like scary thing. You know where my apartment came out of the same complex of the Airbnb that I lived in. Same place. I was looking all over the island. And when all is said and done, it was a few feet away. Hold on a second. You both are asking very similar questions. Daryl says, "Hi, I'm Daryl. I'm really enjoying watching your live as and do I have text you? Hope we can chat." Okay. Yaya says, "Hi, Miss Tracy. I tried to get a price list last night for a reading with repeat customers. Can you please tell me where it's located? I'm confused on the description bar's info." All right. All right, sweetie. Let me just see something. Maybe I could do something else. Give me 1 second. Just for today, because I'm Oops. Paste. All right, guys. It's here. These are my rates. All right. And I have Cash App and all that other good stuff. Okay, guys? If that helps any. So, I'm telling you this story because of fluidity. I feel like even that is something that's missing here, right? Although I'm not telling um, the author what what's right and what's wrong. I just wanted to add that when it's fluid, when there are no obstacles, when it's easy, when it's available, when it's just handed to you, that too is God talking to you. So let me go back. Joy, truth, love. I love those words. Does anybody else love those words? Joy, truth, love. Let's circle that. Joy, truth, love. That's so pretty. These three are interchangeable, and one always leads to the other. It matters not in which order they are placed. Having these guidelines determine which messages are mine and which have come from another source. The only question remaining is whether my messages will be heeded. Most of my messages are not. Some because they seem too good to be true, others because they seem too difficult to follow. Many because they are simply misunderstood. Most because they are just not received. My most powerful message is experience. And even this you ignore. Especially this you ignore. Okay, side note, we got to stop for a minute. My most powerful messenger is experience. Now, you know I know this to be true, being a psychic? I'm going to tell you right now how I know this to be true. I get so many people that have really, really bad first relationship experiences. I mean, bad. Liars, cheaters, drunks, all in one person, right? And they get away from that person. They make it through, they get away. And then I do a reading on their love life. And you know what everyone says to me? Is he coming back? And I'm like, sweetie, which he? Oh, the ex that I was just telling you about. And then I add, do you mean the abuser, the cheater, the liar? That's the he that you want to come back? And they go, yeah. And I don't even finish the reading. I stop the reading and I go, why? And I usually don't get a good answer, right? But I let them answer. But I don't get a good answer because people don't learn from experience. And then I have to give them a good example. And I say, if you went to a restaurant and got food poisoning, would you go back to that restaurant? Automatically, they will say no. And I have to say to them, your experience with this X is food poisoning. And then a light bulb comes in and they get it. A little bit, not fully. But I love the part when God says, most of my messages are not received. Some because they seem too good to be true, like me coming into Caribbean, it was too good to be true, but thank God I did listen. Others because it seems too difficult to follow, like going back to school, right? Some people want to go back to school, but it seems too difficult. Many because they're simply misunderstood. Well, God, I thought you said he was the one. I thought when I got, a sign of double digits or a letter or a number, I thought that was you. That was you telling me he's the one. That happened to me once. If you don't mind me telling my story, so I'm always going to say side note. The number 511 kept coming to me over and over and over. It was consistent. It was all the time. And so I associate numbers with my parents that have passed over. 515 is my dad, and 511. I gave 511 mom because I reserved the number 7 for Jesus. So I was like, I can't have you both having the same numbers. I need to see you differently, right? And so 511 was coming all the time, all the time. And then not soon after that, about a year, I met a man whose birth date was 511. And I thought, oh my God, this is so perfect. This is the sign from God. And it wasn't. It took me a moment to realize that because I was so insistent that this was God. It had to have been, right? I got the sign. Actually, I got a sign. And so, whatever relationship that was with that person whose date was 511, ironically, he only came to my life to teach me one thing. And I thought he was supposed to be my whole life. And once I recognized that he had already taught me what I needed, and this relationship was not going anywhere, and I was not allowed to be abused anymore, I left. But only when I recognized why he was in my life. And it wasn't to be the permanent man in my life. Many because they are simply misunderstood. Most because they are not even received. My most powerful message is experience. And even this you ignore. Especially this you ignore. Your world would not be in its present condition were you to have simply listened to your experience. Oh my God, does anybody get that? Your world would not be in its present condition were you to have simply listened to your experience. You don't even have to listen to God. You just have to listen to your experience to understand. Don't repeat the same things. Wow. I met a girl once in one of my readings, and she's like, I keep getting evicted. I'm like, no, sweetie, you don't keep getting evicted. You keep not paying rent. Two different things. She had never heard that concept before. She's like, I just keep messing up. Yeah, truth. Learn to pay rent. You pay rent, everything else suffers. You don't ever have to eat, but you have to pay rent. You have to pay your cell phone, and you have to pay your electric bill. Those 3 things are mandated. Beyond that, I don't care if you eat ravioli, quarter of a can every day, but you pay your rent. Whew. My most powerful messenger is experience. Notice he called experience a messenger. And even this you ignore, especially this you ignore. Oh my God, I love that. Your world would not be in its present condition were you to have simply listened to your own experience. The result of your not listening to your experience is that you keep reliving it over and over again. Okay, side note. How many of you are in on again, off again relationships? Right? How long have you been dating this person? Well, we're not really dating. Okay, sweetie. How long has this been going on? Well, it's been on and off for 6 years. Why? Why? I'm going back to the book. Your world would not be in its present condition were you to have simply listened to your experience. The result of your not listening to your experience is that you keep reliving it over and over again. Listen, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, watch the movie Groundhog. I think it's called Groundhog's Day. Watch that movie. One of my favorite movies. Watch it. Sometimes that's your life in relationships, repeating the same things over and over again with the same partners, over and nothing changes. And the reason why nothing changes is because something in you has to change. And sometimes that thing that has to change in you, when we're talking about relationships specifically, is that you have to say no more, no mas, I'm out. But I love you. Nope, 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 nope. You might need me. You might need a bed to sleep in. You might need some free sex from me. But you don't need me. You don't stay with me. You don't help me feed my kids. You don't act right. You don't work. You talk shit to me. All right. For my purpose will not be thwarted, nor my will be ignored. You will get the message sooner or later. Again, back and forth relationships, in and out relationships, you got the message. I'll give everyone a leeway. I'll give everyone a second time. After that, no. So you either learned the second time it happened and the same things occurred. You don't need to learn the 6 to 8 time. You don't need to be 6 years, 14 years in a relationship before you get it. Because you're going to learn sooner or later. Your experiences are going to teach you. But it don't need to be so much later. I will not force you to, however. I will never coerce you, but have given you a free will, the power to do as you choose. And I will never take that away from you ever, ever. And so I will continue sending you the same messages over and over throughout the millennia and to whatever corner of the universe you occupy. Endlessly, I will send you messages until you have received them and held them close, calling them your own. My messages will come in 100 forms at 1,000 moments across 1,000,000 years. You cannot miss them if you truly listen. You cannot ignore them once they're truly heard. Thus will our communication begin in earnest. For in the past, you have only talked to me, praying to me, interceding with me, beseeching me. Yet now I can talk back to you, even as I am doing here. How can I know that this communication is from God? How do I know that this is not my own imagination? That's a good question. What would be the difference? Do you not see that I could just as easily work through your imagination as anything else? I will bring you the exact right thoughts, words, or feelings at any given moment, suited precisely to the purpose at hand, using one device or several. You will know these words are from me because you, of your own accord, have never spoken so clearly. Had you already spoken so clearly on these questions, you would not be asking them. To whom does God communicate? Are there special people? Are there special times? All people are special, and all moments are golden. Oh, that's so pretty. Oh, that makes me want to cry. All moments are golden. Side note, right? I just ate breakfast this morning because y'all know how much I love food. And I made scrambled eggs and I put mushroom gravy on the scrambled eggs. And I love cream cheese. So I got out cream cheese, put it on a cracker, a long cracker, and I put the mushroom gravy on the cracker and I set out to eat. And I have to tell you, I was so happy. I was like, this is such a beautiful moment. And I love this word. All moments are golden. I had a golden moment with breakfast today. I was like, I don't want this to end. I love food so much. And it was a healthy, maybe not the crackers, but carrots. All right, back to the book. There's no person here, and there's no time one more special than the other. Many people choose to believe that God communicates in special ways and only with special people. This removes the mass of the people from responsibility for hearing my message, much, much less receiving it, which is another matter, and allows them to take someone else's word for everything. You don't have to listen to me. You've already decided that others have heard from me on every subject, and you have them to listen to. But listening to what other people think they've heard me say, you don't have to think at all. Hmm. Don't we do that with pastors, everyone? Don't we go to church to listen to the word that now we know the word is not always the word because we focus too much on the word? But don't we look for the pastors because we see them as higher beings? I mean, I don't know about you, but that's the way the system is set up to look at your pastors as higher beings, right? And trust what they are saying out of their mouths, and yet God is also talking to you, and that maybe you are a higher being than your pastor. Has anybody ever felt higher than their pastors? Has anybody ever felt that you looked at your pastor and you listen to the words that are coming out of his mouth and you're like, what the fuck is he saying? Has anybody ever experienced that? Because I know I have. I have. I remember my pastor, I don't know if he's still living anymore, from the church I used to go to in Staten Island. And I remember, and this is what I decided. I remember there's a time when he's talking, and then there's a time when he gets anointed, where the spirit comes in. And when he's talking, he sounded like an idiot. When the spirit comes in, he begins to resonate with my soul. And I've learned the difference between the two. And I stayed at that church for years. And so when he starts talking his gibberish in the beginning, I'd be like, oh, I don't have to listen to this. Nope, not listening. And then there would be something in his voice that would like make me look up. And I'd be like, oh, there it is. That spirit. Okay, now I'll listen. Where am I? You don't have to listen to me. You've already decided that others have heard from me on every subject, and you have them to listen to. But listening to what other people think they've heard me say, you don't have to think at all. This is the biggest reason for most people turning from my messages on a personal level. If you acknowledge that you are receiving my messages directly, then you are responsible for interpreting them. It is far safer and much easier to accept the interpretation of others, even others who have lived 2,000 years ago, than than seek to interpret the message you may very well be receiving at this moment now. Interesting. Also interesting. Get some moving stuff up here. Why do some people, take Christ for example, seem to hear more of your communication than others? So why does Christ, as an example, hear you more than others? And God answers, because some people are willing to actually listen. They are willing to listen, and they are willing to remain open to communication even when it seems scary or crazy or downright wrong. We should listen to God even when what's being said seems wrong, especially when it seems wrong. If you think you're right about everything, who needs to talk with God? Go ahead, act on all that you know. But notice that you've all been doing that since time began. And look at what shape the world is in. Clearly, you've missed something. Obviously, there is something you don't understand. That which you do understand must seem right to you, because right is a term you use to designate something with which you agree. What you've missed will therefore appear at first to be wrong. The only way to move forward on this is to ask yourself, what would happen if everything I thought was wrong was actually right? Every great scientist knows about this. When what a scientist does is not working, a scientist set aside all the assumptions and start over. Let me do that over again. When what a scientist does is not working, a scientist sets aside all the assumptions and starts over. All great discoveries have been made from a willingness and ability to not be right. That's what's needed here. You cannot know God until you stop telling yourself you already know God. Oh my God, this is so profound. Oh my gosh. You cannot hear God until you stop thinking that you've already heard God. I cannot tell you my truth until you stop telling me yours. Wow. Wow. Is everyone okay? Just want to do a quick check in. Is everyone okay? Just checking on you guys. Wow, that sounds so crazy to me. Hmm. Let's take a pause. Just take a pause for a minute. Just take in a little bit of what I'm saying. If I'm going too fast or if you're missing something, tell me to repeat. I'd be happy to go over things over and over because I want the messages to get through. All right. Let's see what's happening. Um, are you guys okay? Okay, so I'll continue. I cannot tell you my truth until you stop telling me yours. And the person says, but my truth about God comes from you. Who said that? That's not what it says. Who said so? Others. What others? Leaders, ministers, rabbis, priests, books, the Bible, for heaven's sake. Those are not authoritative sources. They aren't? No. Then what is? Listen to your feelings. Wow. Listen to your highest thoughts. Listen to your experience. Whenever any one of these differ from what you've been told by your teachers or read in your books, forget the words. Words are the least reliable purveyor of the truth. Now, has anyone ever grown up in American history? Have you ever grown up in American history and you start to read about the different wars? And I remember thinking when I was a kid, right? I remember thinking the history books are so thick, right? Because size for us meant importance. No other books were as thick as your history books, right? And I remember thinking, but I was a weird little kid, but I remember thinking, why? And then we would go over history in class. And one, I remember being completely bored with history. And I really should have liked history because I remember saying later on in life, why didn't I pay more attention when I was taking history for 4 years, by the way, in high school? And then I realized, much later in life, I realized I didn't pay attention because history lied. The history I was reading was not my history. The history was flawed and had left out so many important details and only wanted us to believe that we were the best, the only. The America was the thing that matters. That was a period, point blank. And then you get older and you realize everyone has a history of their own. One, that history matters to other cultures, right? Now, this may not make sense to you all, but I'm talking about an era where it was not so common to know anything but America, right? And then as you get older and you mingle more with other nationalities and you begin to hear their history, how their countries form, why Taiwan had to separate from China, right? Like little things like that from friends that will give you pieces of their history. And then you realize that not everybody likes America because America has done bad things in their country. And then you have to listen to some of their stories from their reality because that is their truth. And then you begin to realize, oh my God, history was a whole lie. The whole time we were learning history to make us believe that we were the only, the best, the most important. But so many lies are out there, And I say that to say, when the person says, "But my truth comes from God. My truth about God comes from you," and he's like, "Who said so?" And Neil goes, "Others." What others? Leaders, ministers, rabbis, priests, the books of any kind, the Bible. And God goes, those are not authoritative sources. And Neil goes, they aren't? And God goes, no. And he says, then what is? Listen to your feelings. And I remember feeling like uncomfortable about history, but I didn't know why. Listen to your feelings. Listen to your highest thoughts. Listen to your experience. Whenever any of these differ from what you've been told by your teachers or read in your books, forget the words. Words are the least reliable purveyor of truth. There's so much I want to say to you, says Neil. So much I want to ask. I don't know where to begin. For instance, why is it that you do not reveal yourself? If there really is a God and you are it, why do you not reveal yourself in a way we all can understand? I have done so over and over. I am doing so again, right now. No, I mean a method of revelation that is incontrovertible, that cannot be denied. And God says, such as appearing right now before my eyes. And God goes, I am doing so right now. Where? Everywhere you look. No, says Neil. I mean in an incontrovertible way, in a way no man could deny. What would that be? In what form or shape would you have me appear? And Neil goes, in a form or shape that you actually have. And God says, that would be impossible. For I have no form or shape you understand. I could adopt a form or shape that you could understand, but then everyone would assume that what they have seen is the one and only form and shape of God, rather than a form or shape of God, one of many. People believe I am what they see me as, rather than what they do not see. But I am the great unseen, not what I cause myself to be in any particular moment. In a sense, I am what I am not. It is from the am notness that I come, and to it I will always return. And yet, when I come in one particular form or another, a form in which I think people can understand me, people assign me that form forever. Should I come in any other form to any other people? The first say I did not appear to the second because I did not look to the second as I did to the first, nor say the same things. How could it have been me? You see, then it matters in what form or in what matter I reveal myself. Whatever manner I choose and whatever form I take, none will be incontrovertible. And Neil goes, but if you did something that would evidence the truth of you, are you beyond doubt or questions? And God says, there are still those who would say, it is of the devil, or simply someone's imagination, or any cause other than me. If I reveal myself as God Almighty, King of Heaven, I like that phrase though, King of Heaven. I like that. Or Queen of Heaven. King of Heaven and earth, and moved mountains to prove it, there are those that would say it must have been Satan. And such as it is should be. But God does not reveal God's self to God's self from or through outward observation, but through inward experience. And then inward experience has revealed God's self. Outward observation is not necessary. And if outward observation is necessary, inward experience is not possible. If then the revelation is requested, it cannot be had, for the act of asking is a statement that is not there, that nothing of God is now being revealed. Such a statement produces the experience. Okay, I'm a little confused here. For your thought about something is creative, and your word is productive, and your thought and your word together are magnificently effective in giving birth to your reality. Therefore, shall you experience that God is not now revealed, for if God were, you would not ask God to be. All right, that was a mouthful. Does that mean I cannot ask anything I want? Are you saying that praying for something actually pushes it away from us? There is a question, God answers, which has been asked through the ages and has been answered whenever it has been asked. Yet you have not heard the answer or will not believe it. The question is answered again in today's terms, in today's language, thusly. You will not have that for which you ask, nor can you have anything you want. This is because your very request is a statement of lack. And your saying you want something only works to produce that precise experience, wanting it in your reality. Can we go over that real quick? You will not have that for which you ask, nor can you have anything you want. This is because your very request is a statement of lack. And you're saying you want a thing only works to produce that precise experience, wanting it in your reality. Do you guys get that? Okay. Do I need to go over it again? You will not have that for which you ask, nor can you have anything you want. This is because your very request is a statement of lack. And you're saying you want something only works to produce the precise experience, wanting in your reality. Let's go on. The correct prayer, therefore, never a prayer of supplication, but a prayer of gratitude. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. When you thank God in advance for that which you choose to experience in your reality, you, in effect, acknowledge that it is there in effect. Thankfulness is thus the most powerful statement to God, an affirmation that even before you asked, I have answered. Therefore, never supplicate, appreciate. Huh. Well, there goes some homework for us. If we could stop there for a moment, that maybe before our feet touches the ground, maybe we don't shoot up so fast and run into the shower. Maybe we can have a conversation with God and start to say what you're thankful for. You know what's interesting, guys? When I was in church, because I don't go to church anymore, I was actually told you can't ask God, you can't be thankful for God for something that has not occurred. I was actually told that. And I remember feeling uncomfortable when someone said that. It seemed odd that I shouldn't be thankful for something in advance. And so I always monitored that. I always monitored based upon the words of this one woman, it was, and felt some guilt or something weird about asking God for something in advance. Huh. So I'm going to start changing my words up because I want to thank God for allowing me to learn to figure out how to get my healing center here on St. Croix. I want to thank Him in advance for my healing center idea, building. Wow, that felt much better. Very interesting. So I want you guys to do that too. I want you guys to start asking in a form of appreciation what you want by stating that you've already received it, right? I want to thank God in advance that what He will bring to me is a man that understands and gets me. Again, that feels better. Huh. That felt different. Hmm. Yeah, I like that. But what if I am grateful to God in advance for something and it never shows up? That could lead to disillusion and bitterness. And God answers, gratitude cannot be used as a tool for which to manipulate God, a device which to fool the universe. You cannot lie to yourself. Your mind knows the truth of your thoughts. If you are saying, thank you, God, for such and such, all the while being very clear that it isn't there in your present reality, you cannot expect God to be less clear than you, and so produce it for you. God knows what you want to know, and what you know is what appears as your reality. But Neil says, but how can I be truly grateful for something I know is not there? And God answers faith. If you have but the faith of a mustard seed, you shall move mountains. I love that. You come to know it is there because I said it is there, because I said that. Even before you asked, I shall have answered, because I said and have said to you in every conceivable way through every teacher you could name, that whosoever you shall choose, choosing it in my name, so shall it be. Oh, so many people say that their prayers have gone unanswered. No prayer, and a prayer is nothing more than a fervent statement of what is, goes unanswered. Every prayer, every thought, every statement, every feeling is creative to the degree that it is fervently held as truth. To the degree will it be made manifest in your experience. When it is said that a prayer has not been answered, what has in actuality happened is the most fervently held thought, word, or feeling has become operative. Yet, you must know, and here is the secret, is that always it is the thought behind the thought, what might be called the sponsoring thought, that is the controlling thought. If therefore you beg and supplicate, there seems a much smaller chance that you will experience what you think you are choosing, because the sponsoring thought behind every supplication is that you do not have now what you wish. That sponsoring thought becomes your reality. The only sponsoring thought could override this thought is the thought held in faith by God will grant whatever is asked without fail. Some people have faith, but very few. The process of prayer becomes much easier when, rather than having to believe that God will always say yes to every request, one understands intuitively that the request itself is not necessary. Then the prayer is a prayer of thanksgiving. It's not a request at all, but a statement of gratitude for what is so. All right, guys. Whew, this is going to be heavy. I could tell that right now. I'm going to stop here. I'm tired. I hope I helped. I hope it's meaningful somehow, some way today. Next week, I'm going to open up the channels so that if you guys have anything to say, you are more than welcome to come on, camera off. My camera will stay off on Saturdays, and yours could come on or off, doesn't matter to me. But if you have something that you would like to contribute to anything that I said, I welcome a dialogue with you. Anything you've missed or anything that is important to you. So next week we will start on page 13, Lucky 13 again. And I hope I'm helping, guys. You know, my biggest joy in life is helping others. It really is. It's what I live for. So I'm going to pray for God to give me everything I'm supposed to have to reach the masses intellectually. All right, guys? Thank you for your participation. Thank you for listening. I love you guys. Take it easy. Bye.
Gals and guys, go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Gals and guys, go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Gals and guys, go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Go to Tracey Brown Live. Gals and guys, go to Tracey Brown Live.